Hi, Simon. The first question is, of course, how you started programming. What was your first machine?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I started programming. Well, the first machine I really used was an Amstrad. It's a very tough laptop, weighs around, I don't know, maybe 10 kilos or so.
A laptop?
Yeah, it has a full IBM keyboard, but we had to plug in really batteries in, a lot of them, to get it powered up. And it has 2 floppy disk drives. So one for the operating system and one for your data.
I never knew about that. So what I had that ZX Spectrum, which was bought by Amstrad, but never. This is an interesting story with the Amstrad. You know the name?
No, I have it right next to me, but it's packed in this bag, so I don't see the machine number. Sorry.
and you know what happened with the company Amstrad?
No, I don't.
This would okay. And what is your first Hello World, or what was your first line of code?
I think it was in Visual Basic or Visual Basic script or VBA actually. So it's part of writing a Microsoft Access application. Mm-hmm. It was at Siemens as an internship at that time. It was right before my study, and they asked me whether I could improve their system. They already built one, and then I said yes. And I had 2 weeks until the start of my internship, and then I bought some books about that and learned it because I didn't know it before. I just said it with a very self-confident yes. And then it worked out quite well. It's a funny story.
This is really interesting. So your first line of code was actually a commercial one for Siemens.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And you like that? Or was it a painful experience? Or
well, it was spaghetti code, actually. So you had go-tos and...
yeah, of course. But you liked the experience? So you enjoyed the coding?
Well, I did enjoy I wouldn't have called it HR back then, but it actually was HR. So I was sitting at one desk, and my customers basically were sitting 2 desks away. And so I programmed something, and then a few minutes later, a few hours later, depending on what I did, I just showed them what I did. They tested it, they used it, and gave me feedback. And then I went back to my desk, and that goes back and forth. So it's basically embracing change all along.
Yeah, but why not, right? I mean, this is the only natural way to go. I mean, anything else is just, I don't know, overcomplicated and wrong, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that was really interesting and fun, but language didn't work that much. Or isn't that well suited because there's not many really modularization or abstractions you could use.
Okay.
Really tough. Like it's really imperative and no object-oriented or functional style.
Okay, so you never coded before. So this was your first line of code in internship at Siemens.
Yeah.
But how you got there? I mean, you already knew that you were somehow interested in computers, or I mean, because usually you are interested in language and you get a job. And in your case, you got a job and then you learn the language. So it's an interesting story.
Yeah, I don't know. I was interested in computers, but I mostly played games.
Okay.
And
which ones?
It was Warcraft 3 actually, so a real-time strategy game, and it was interesting story because I was invited to the games convention one time to play at the top 16 in Germany. Wow. And I don't know how I ended up there because I finished last at the tournament, but I lost the first match I lost against the winner, so I always could say, yeah, I won against the one who won.
Okay.
The tournament at the time.
When was it? 2007? 2005?
Oh no, that's. Oh yeah. Oh, let's see. 2004 or something.
Okay, cool. Very interesting.
Really long time ago.
Yeah, and then how you move on? So you started Visual Basic, and then.
Actually, I started studying at university in Bamberg, and from there it's mostly Java. So we had our. Well, not really. So the very first part at that university was Scheme.
Wait a minute. So you after internship at Siemens, you started to study at Bamberg, right? University. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And why? I mean, you knew that you will like programming, or what's the story behind? still unusual. So you get, internship, you learn coding, and then you study coding. So, I mean.
Yeah, but I think it was basically the idea. I wanted to do something with businesses. So I really liked the idea of making something, selling something, everything that's around a business, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I studied information systems. So it's not like real computer science.
Mm-hmm.
So a much more practical, applied way of it.
Okay.
And, I wasn't sure whether I really will be a full-time developer as I'm now. That was not the clear road ahead. So
Okay.
I said, okay, I wanted to do this, but I started out with Scheme and then with Java at university, and really had a lot of subjects in business administration as well. But over time, I realized I'm more a developer and less juggling numbers around.
Hey, cool.
I do juggle numbers around, but
Yeah.
different kind.
Okay. So okay, now I got you. So it's actually an interesting story, really unique story. And so you started with Scheme at the University of Bamberg, right? So it was the first language. You like that?
Yeah, I think it's excellent for learning, for getting started.
Okay.
Because it teaches you all the concepts, all the abstractions, and about scoping. So basically, I knew JavaScript since then.
Yes.
Because
exactly. JavaScript is based on Scheme. You're absolutely right. So the ideas, it is the syntax from C or Java, but the concepts are from Scheme. Yeah. And how long you did Scheme? So 1 year or half a year? So
I think it was just 3 months or so.
3 months, okay. And then immediately Java happened?
Yeah, and then since then Java, mostly Java, a little bit of Ruby later on for an online shop.
Okay.
We developed a little bit of PHP.
So another question. So you started with VBA, then Scheme, and then Java. So you like Java or you hated that?
I really like Java, but I think it was mostly because of the excellent tool support,
okay.
I think, and the ability to improve it without having to think about it that much. So just rename the variable or rename that class or extract that method, and it just worked. And
this was refactoring. So which IDEs you used back then,
It was Eclipse.
Eclipse. Okay, so you were lucky. So it was. I started with Java. There was no refactoring support, so I used JBuilder, and you couldn't rename. And the first IDE actually, which could do this really, was later JBuilder and Eclipse. So Eclipse was open source, and then it really took off. And with Eclipse, I killed back then many commercial IDEs because they couldn't refactor that well that Eclipse did. So, so you are in, you were already in good position, having Eclipse with refactoring support.
Yeah, that was really, really fun back then, trying it all out, and Eclipse was really, really, the best thing at the time, I think.
So you studied then Java, and you like Java because of tooling, and so did you something special during studying, like working, concurrently, or was just studying and enjoying, the student life in Bamberg with Schenkeller?
Yeah, the Schlenkerla is excellent beer.
Yeah.
I think since my third semester, I always did a student assistant job, teaching assistant, in the Java courses and later on at algorithms or software engineering, but always with a Java focus. So I did a lot of student assisted jobs. I think I counted it once for an application later on, and I think it was like 10 or 12 courses I taught. So it's really, really, I really lived for helping others. It was really, really a nice way to earn a little bit of money on the side, so you could buy more Schlenkerla.
Yeah.
But also, I really like teaching and helping others get better at the programming.
Yeah. And what I do from time to time, I also deliver workshops or sessions. And why I'm doing this, you also learn for yourself or for myself, because you are forced to rethink, paradigms or patterns because you are forced to explain them. You cannot just, take them as given. You have to think about why they are actually important. So you will have to explain it to your student, and this is what this is a great learning experience, at least in my case. Was it also in your case?
Yeah, absolutely. So I learned much more about this topic during teaching. So it's a little bit selfish, you could say.
yeah, absolutely. It is selfish. So being a trainer is absolutely selfish. Yeah. But the funny thing is, everyone considers this as something, how to call it? Not selfish is the opposite of selfish. And yeah.
Mm.
Now, you studied, and then you did some commercial work beside your study, or just studied and taught other students?
A little bit. I continued a little bit at Siemens, but not that much.
Okay.
I wasn't interested in it anymore, so I just did a little bit for the money.
Okay.
The money only.
And is Siemens in Bamberg?
No, it's in Nuremberg.
In Nuremberg, okay.
Nuremberg. So, yeah. I think I did a little bit of work in non-profit. It's an organization that created a large portal. So it's basically the website every student in Bamberg visits daily. Mm-hmm. And we relaunched that using a large PHP open source framework. And
was it the studies, or how it's called, the German Facebook? How it's called? Study VZ, or you know what I mean? There was like a German social.
Yeah, StudiVZ.
Yeah, is it still alive?
I think that's dead now, but I'm not sure. But it's not that.
No, I know. This was just fun. It was not. It was not open source, and it was highly commercial, I think.
Yeah. But we made something a little similar, but not that similar in Bamberg. But it was an interesting project, and
you did it with PHP.
Yeah, Joomla, if you know the technology.
And you enjoyed the experience? So you had a lot. No, okay.
I did enjoy it, working with like 10 people and launching that and making the launch smoother and the migration, data migration, because we had a system that no one understood anymore in Java, funnily. Okay. And no one understood it anymore. No one wanted to invest anything. And we thought like, okay, we use something that's not just built for us, but built for a lot of people, like standard software, and customize it, and how to do that transition, and with 10 people, how to organize it, how to keep them motivated, because it's non-profit, so nobody gets money. So it's just for fun. Mm-hmm. And if you want to do excellent work for fun, it's not that easy. I think every open source project knows that, especially if you have deadlines and you want to ship it as quickly as possible, and so on and so on. So it was really an interesting experience.
Yeah. So you started with Java, then went to Joomla, or you just started with Joomla?
No. Joomla was just on the side, I would say. Mm-hmm. I just did enough to get the job done, but I didn't really have the heart for it.
Okay, but it was PHP, right?
Yeah.
And what is your opinion about PHP?
It's like a love-hate relationship, I would say.
Mm-hmm. Why I'm asking is because on my workshop sometimes I get people from the PHP side of things, and I've showed them, I usually do Java E and Java. They are absolutely delighted. So for them it's like, wow, this is great, and I'm really confused because what I read in blogs and articles, like PHP is the lightweight thing and Java is heavyweight, and then now PHP people coming to the AirHacks workshops and are absolutely delighted about the Java E productivity. So this was the question to you. So what's your opinion?
Mm. Yeah, it was a long time ago, so things have probably changed a lot. I don't have a close eye on the PHP community and PHP technologies. But back then, Java had much better tooling everywhere, like for testing, for building, for deployment, for IDEs. And PHP was, well, the lightweight approach, the quicker. You could just hack a few lines in and you get your job done. You don't have to compile. It just worked. And a lot of people, especially in the team I work for, it's more approachable to beginners.
Okay. Yeah.
That's basically why we choose it.
Yeah. Okay, so and after PHP, you said you did some JRuby or Ruby.
It was the nonprofit also has an online shop for selling university stuff, so T-shirts and things with the logo of the university on.
Cool.
And for that, we built a Ruby on Rails online shop.
Yeah, was it 2007?
No, it was 2011 or something.
Okay, because 2006 and 2007, everything had to be Ruby, you know.
Okay. Maybe it was a little bit late on that. Yeah, but it was interesting because we added a transaction-based stock keeping system. So it was really interesting from that perspective as well.
So, and you enjoyed that?
Yeah, Ruby was really a great experience, and Rails. So really felt really productive. I missed my tooling sometimes, but with a strong test coverage or high test coverage, you quickly found these errors and could refactor. But sometimes you said, okay, let's don't refactor this because I don't know what will happen.
Yeah,
but it had a little bit of an effect on me, and I realized the strength of Java tooling. So it became much more clear to me because when you miss something, it's more clear to you what you had.
Mm-hmm. This is what I never got, because in 2006 Java was said to be dead because we got Rails, and the arguments were always like, in Rails you have great support for unit tests, so you don't need tooling. And for me, it was like I used tools all the time because I very easily could, rearrange the whole application in seconds, which has also big impact on the usage of patterns because, you can always introduce, for instance, an interface afterwards. You just, pick a method, say, create an interface, and it was done for me without any thinking. Without that tooling, I wouldn't do this. So I will have to create, I would say, more traditional designs because it would be harder to refactor them. So I think tooling has a great impact on design. With tooling, you can be very pragmatic. Without tooling, you will have to be more conservative because refactoring is more painful, right?
Yeah. The fear of change actually is highly correlated. If you fear that something will break, you won't do it.
Yeah.
And the higher the fear, the less the chance you'll do it. And
absolutely.
The confidence, but if a tool is bad and every refactoring breaks, it doesn't help at all.
Yeah.
So yes, because some tools nowadays also support it, but in the end, it's just a 80% solution, even in these languages. Yeah.
So after JRuby, was any other project at the university, or then was over for you?
No, I think the main part in university was mostly over, and I switched to becoming I would say, wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter, which is like a teaching or the research assistant, switching sides from study to pursuing a PhD.
So, wissenschaftlicher Mitarbeiter is like a scientific co-worker, right? Or assistant, a scientific assistant.
It's really hard to translate.
Yeah, but it sounds great in English.
It's basically a paid PhD student.
Oh, cool. So you stick at the university and you implement something on the university or did some research. I found briefly on your resume, I don't know whether I should mention that, you did something with ESBs or EBXML or something like this, right?
It was my diploma thesis, but it was about choreography. So if two or more parties want to collaborate, how do you model that, and how to do that, and how to monitor this distributed transaction between a lot of different parties that all have their different interests in mind. And
yeah, still up to date topic, I would say, with the microservices.
I think it comes. This distributed systems. It was the chair I joined for my PhD. I think all of the topics of distributed systems are nowadays very relevant, still very relevant, and even more relevant than before.
Cool. So I did your scientific co-worker job, and so you implemented something, lots of proof of concept, or it was just paperwork. So what you did then, and how long?
I was at the chair for 6 years, and basically we collaborated on a single project, which we called the BPL or BPMN test execution system, I think. Short name Betsy. And it's a system to benchmark the workflow of BPL or BPMN engines against standard conformance and other features.
Cool. Is it usable outside the university?
We published the results and on a website.
Yeah, sure. Would you use it outside the university?
Okay. The tool itself or the BPL or BPMN engines?
Okay. No, I mean the engine. So would you use the engine outside the university to check something? Or was it just, you would say, no, it was just scientific work? Or is it a pragmatic tool which is highly usable or we could recommend to our listeners?
No, I would use the results.
Okay,
but
the results.
I wouldn't use it in this industry, yeah. So
okay.
The results are, I think, interesting because it shows that portability is an issue.
Okay.
And the promise that if you do this with these process languages, that you get portability, that's just not happening. Okay,
now you are expert. So switch the topics for a second. So about BPMN and all this stuff. So this works and it's okay. But my feeling is the following from the industry. So rule engines, ESBs, orchestration engines, and all workflow engines. They are mostly introduced with the hope that someone without any coding experience would be able to model the flows without coding in some kind visual or declarative way. And then what happens is it turns out that in order to have orchestration, you need at least some if-else, for loops, or precondition, post-condition thinking. And it actually does not matter whether you are a visual coder or ASCII coder. You have to be a coder to appreciate that. And then everything, just the idea gets destroyed because the developers will have still to talk to the business people. And they have to translate, the business requirements from PDFs into an engine which they don't like and don't appreciate. So this is the sad story of 80% project I was with, orchestration engines. You see the problems here? You saw something similar, or you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think that's where they fall short. So it doesn't work for like the non-developer to develop something that's running later on. I think it's something that has never worked, and it's just a promise.
Yeah,
those products and those systems couldn't live up to. I think where we have another aspect. We nowadays want to have small teams, everything vertically sliced. So and these teams operate everything on their own. So these large systems, these large workflow management systems or business process management systems are also not that interesting anymore because a small team of 5 to 10 people doesn't want to maintain such a software and run it.
Exactly.
And you don't want to have this central system anymore. So the central approach basically is no longer there. But we still have this need for having this central look at the process itself. So it's basically what everybody wants. So you have this process and you see where the customer is in his journey towards, buying his bicycle or whatever the process is about. And you want to see the hotspots and so on. So the visual part, I think that hasn't changed. We still want that. And the thing that today's challenge is how do we get the centralized view when we have a lot of distributed and decentralized components and teams. They're all independent, doing the DevOps style work, and how to get it together again in the end.
But usually what we did, we just replaced the engine with a Vue POJOs running in a standalone microservice, with different responsibilities just. Mm-hmm. This would worked well.
Yeah, that's fine in most cases, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, perfect. I just wanted to have your opinion because, you studied this for several years. I have just experience from the field. So I wanted to hear this. Okay. Now you're done with Betsy after 6 years. And then what happened?
Oh, that the craziest year in my life happened. It was 2017, and I had to write up my thesis. So like, first, I don't know, 4 or 5 months, I just wrote up my thesis, and in that meantime, I was about to start or found a startup together with Bosch, or Bosch as the first customer, I would say. And we've written a few, part of the software already, and now we continued writing it. And I signed a book contract about a Java book at the beginning of the year, so I had to deliver that. And at some point in time, my wife said, "Hey, I'm pregnant," and that was my year 2017.
Okay. So okay, and what's happened with Bosch?
We did ship the prototype, or the first, I would say the MVP. Yeah, it was interesting experience, but it didn't work out, because in the end, it's really hard to convince people to join, or to join a startup actually.
Okay.
In Germany, because the positions everybody already has, they earn you a lot of money, and it's quite comfortable. Everybody's very comfortable in their positions, and you don't. It's really very hard to convince them to say, "Okay, quit your job and join a startup."
Yeah, what I actually coached several startups, but they were like startups like you, which started with one person, then 2 and 3. They were ultra productive, and this is how it worked really well, So it was never like, you start up and just you search for capital money and do something. They always had ideas. It was very similar to your story. But what was it with Bosch? So what kind of software was it?
Software to help in the negotiation phase. So they had to negotiate deals for buying stuff. So Bosch buys something and then produces something better out of it. And the market changes. So you decide on a price basically, and from point A to point B in time, the world changes. Everything changes.
Okay.
Exchange rates change, prices change for materials, and these all have influences on negotiating the price at the next point in time. So basically, we correlated their info with the world and showed and it gave advice. Basically, that was the first step.
Okay, cool. And now you're just working as a full-time professor, or what are you doing right now?
No. I'm working at InnoQ. It's a consultant company.
When you started?
In April last year, so for almost 1 year now.
Cool. This is for Stefan Tilkov, right? Company?
Yeah.
Hey, cool. And what you're doing there?
I'm working at a customer since August.
Cool.
And we're helping them by building, in the e-commerce domain, building order management system, or helping them in that part.
And you quit with the university?
I'm sorry?
And you're not working anymore for the university?
Oh, maybe I think next semester I'll be holding a Kubernetes seminar there. So
nice.
Master seminar students will have the opportunity to write seminar thesis on Kubernetes.
Very nice. And the last question regarding university is, where is it? I know Bamberg a little bit. I know, the old city. I know the Altenburg is like the castle. Where is the university?
The university is located at a very nice point. It's so the whole university is everywhere in the city, but the computer science department or business information department is at the Landesgartenschaugelände. It's the area where they had a very nice park. And it's the.
This is where the sea is. There's some seas. Is this in this area?
It's the Erba.
Go with that to look it up. So if the listeners are interested, then they can visit your university. Well, okay. Usually I ask my guests, the questions to because I'm really interested how they started, what the machines was. In your case, I was really curious about your background. It seems like after your book, you started consulting, and I actually read the whole book, Java by Comparison. I started, so the last 5 pages were today, actually, morning. So I was really happy that we did the interview that late. And I have to say it is a great book, but I wouldn't admit it that this is for beginners, because it is actually more for the experienced programmers. My feeling is that the beginners write simple code because they don't know better, and high-end consultants write complicated code to show off. So I think actually your book would be more appropriate, for more seasoned programmers to rethink what they are actually doing in projects, because I'm deleting code constantly, and there is a lot of code without any reason. I'm all the 70 rules or 68 rules I'm happy with. 2 rules we have talked about in your book, and how your book is is organized is like you have lots of examples, which I really appreciate. So I like book with not too much text and more code, and your book is perfect for that. And so you always have one example of Java which is suboptimal but is working, and another example of piece of code which is optimized or more readable, not optimized from the performance perspective, rather than optimized from the maintainability perspective. This is why I ask you so many questions, because I thought you have lots of field experience, and I say, I really hate what I see in real world. Now let's write a book about that. But your experience is quite the opposite, which is really interesting. So how you got the ideas. And I also learned a lot from your book. For instance, in your unit tests, all methods are not public. So if I write unit tests, I always write public without any thinking, like cargo cult. You always did it this way, so I keep it doing. But it's actually not even necessary to have public void. Void is just enough. And so I really enjoyed the book. And 2 things. One rule what you had was with no exceptions in streams. And I thought a lot about that, because what you did then, I forgot the use case with the Mars ship, but on exceptions you returned an empty stream. This is what you basically did, something like stream empty or collections empty or something.
Yeah.
And this works well only in case the empty is not a valid result, right? Because if, let's say, we would use what I sometimes do, streams to coordinate microservices, then what can happen is that actually I get an error from a microservice, and then I will convert the error to an empty element, which could be a valid response, because no answer is a valid answer, for instance, and then I would be in trouble. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I understand the point. So it's the idea of the comparison is basically to say, in the functional world there are no exceptions. In the functional world, you have an input and an output, and something in between the function. Yeah. So, and when you're entering the stream, you are entering the functional world, and the exceptions somehow let you, or side effects, both allow you to not be pure functional. And so we want to make sure you think about that. So basically what you would do is you create an object or an instance of something that represents an error, and that's your output.
Yes. So we would have to change, the result of a method that represents the valid state and the error state. This would work.
Yeah. So basically it's in other functional languages, it would be an either. So it's either okay, and the okay has some variables, basically. Properties, and it may, or either it's not okay, so it's failed somehow, and that has also properties, and so that would have been introduced.
Yeah, in Java we could do something like order result, and this order result object would contain, the valid, for instance, order, or if not, the error why it is invalid, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, then I'm happy with it. The next one, which causes a lot of trouble in my projects. Actually, I'm in code review mode right now, and I'm just, writing slides and deleting code. And one was like favor abstract types over concrete types or something, a rule, which is on the collections, I'm with you. So you had something like don't do array list equals new array list. Also, I have to say, it is really, because we have the tooling, it is not like, the end of the world if I would do this, because I can still very easily replace the array list on the left side with a list. So this is not a huge problem. But I still write, as you said, your code, because I always do list equals new array list, because it's shorter and there is actually no reason to have the ugly array list on the left side. So it's more like aesthetics or less code. But the problem leads what I spend lots of my time in Java EE projects, and right now there is a code review, and in the code review what they did is sometimes they have an interface always, and on the right side they have implementation of the interface, and there's only one, always one, never changes, and the name ends with impl, because there is actually no reason to have the interface. And if you, for instance, have something like Java EE, you can inject a class, but you can always replace the class afterwards, because the framework is capable of that. So what I would say, we already get the abstractions built into the platform, so there is no need to have an interface for everything, So what happens in lots of the patterns, like or the hexagonal architectures and domain-driven design, they assumed there is no platform. So if you just use the language, so you will have to write the patterns. But because we have, for instance, Java EE, so then lots of stuff is built in, is already abstracted for us, so it's already hidden. So there is actually no reason to create another abstraction on top of or on already existing abstraction, because it will end up to be empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I see. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was just two remarks. Everything else I'm perfectly, and actually was really good experience, and I was forced to read the book. I actually, all my other books, they were suspended, and in all my flights I just, because if the on takeoff and how is it called, not touchdown, rather not touchdown, but on the on arrival, you're usually not allowed to use laptops. So I read the book on my smartphone and really enjoyed that. And as I said, I don't think it is for junior developers, because your advices are. By the way, I actually try to write exactly your style without having names for that. And for instance, also a nice thing in the unit test, you said don't create the objects in before. Use a static method which constructs the objects, because it's easier, but because it's more understandable, right? This is
it's even more isolated.
Yeah, and I don't care about the isolation and about readability, but I did it because if you do this, you can reuse the created object in another unit test. So I use exactly your code for different reasons. So then if the method is static, what I did, for instance, if you need in order test an already existing on a customer, you can do in the order integration test, you can do something like customer integration test dot create customer, and you can reuse the customer creation for the order. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and I was forced to do that, but I always had a bad feeling. So, okay, this is necessary, but no one does that. This is really the right way. And now we have a book written by you. You can say, hey, this is absolutely valid, because it's a great book. It's a very popular one, right? Is it? It sells well?
It says okay. It's not. The thing is, we had this coincidence that if Java, in the effective Java 3rd edition came out, and they're always before us in the rankings.
But this is a different book. I mean, this effective Java is okay, but it's a little bit, I would say, exaggerated. And your book is very pragmatic. This is what I wanted to do, where I am coming from, because it is remarkable that someone with your background can write such a book. This is why I asked you so many questions what you did before.
Regarding the background, I have to clarify. So it's the whole thing of the book was I did teaching for 6 years during my PhD. So we basically taught students 6 years Java, and during the time we reviewed all their code for 6 years, and they always had to hand in like small homework projects, and basically everything in the book came from the experience of reviewing the code from I don't know, probably thousands of students, and during that time, so we had really good data basically for seeing which things do people do wrong when they start learning Java.
Yeah, but it seems like your University of Bamberg is really remarkable because when I get students fresh out of college, they write complete different code. So they try to apply all the Django 4 and J2E patterns they know, and it's just like they save an object with 20 levels of abstractions and DTOs and mappers and whatever, just because they learned at the university and that way. So and your code is the opposite. So this is why this is so remarkable. So it's unusual for the university to write pragmatic code. This is yeah.
I think that's the fun part was back in 2011. I together with my colleague, we had the chance to create 2 new Java courses, and we did it. We created these courses the way we would like them to have had when we were students ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's why we came up with the format that taught a lot using code review, taught a lot of good design, and I think we got really good feedback. And in the end, we won the award for best teaching at the faculty. So that really made an impact. I think it was a really great experience.
Yeah, but still, I can tell you what happened to me. So I try to remove in my projects whatever is not necessary, and I always have trouble with it. And I don't know, 5 years ago, there was one developer who really didn't want to write simple code, and he constantly found research papers from universities why I'm wrong. Like, for instance, there was always a research paper why you should abstract everything and why you should map everything. And he constantly sent me slide, you are absolutely wrong, this is what the university are teaching, and you are absolutely stupid. And my answer was always, I don't care about university. If the software is simple, the code is readable, and is quick, very easy to understand by other developers, we will win regardless, what the university is telling. And your book is exactly about that. Write simple code that can be easy to understand by other people. Just use the language constructs, if they are available, and try to reduce, fancy frameworks even. So you point to external libraries, but only if they are needed. And this is not usual, but I like it.
Yeah, that was interesting, especially about the libraries. And in my current projects, a team member is very strict about not adding any libraries. Or if we do, we really have to have a good case about it.
Yeah, very good. This is even, this is my theory.
That's really, I really learned that in industry now, and I really like it. So it's basically you have to create a very high burden to add a library.
Yes.
Because if it's there, it will stick forever.
Exactly. And if you add the library, what I say is, okay, if you have a library and the project is serious, what you should do is you should be able to build the library from source code, because if, in GitHub, the developers don't like, to maintain the library anymore, this is your insurance, and make it buildable on Jenkins. So for me, every external library is additional costs, even if it comes for free.
Yeah. It's interesting when you think about using a framework. I don't know whether you use Java EE or whether you use Spring. You get a lot of libraries from those frameworks. So it's basically also a cost there. But
this is interesting.
For granted. So if they add a new library, we just say okay. But if you want to add a library for yourself, we say we have a lot of high standards to let them enter our code, and that's something I will have to think about and how to differentiate.
The differentiation is in my eyes fairly easy. So, for instance, in Java EE world, most of my clients have contracts with Red Hat, IBM, Payara, or Tommy Tribe, and they receive patched versions of the server. And if something breaks, we get usually very fast a patched version of the server. So we don't care about the servers at all in Java. They live somewhere and I don't care. It's almost like serverless. So they are somewhere, but who cares about them? And you just focus on the business logic. And because it's so separated, you never see the libraries from the servers. if they add a new library, I absolutely don't care. For instance, for the micro profile matrix is like, some business matrix. Some of the servers use Hystrix and others don't, but I never see Hystrix and I don't care about Hystrix. I just, I would like to have my matrix. So, and in this scenario, if the war is empty, adding any additional library becomes immediately visible because you have empty POM and you will get, new dependencies and you see them. And now the question is, why is the dependency here? It's exactly like your book, why the code is here. What happens if you remove the library? How much code will you save adding the library? And how much code will I have to write by removing the library? And by doing these experiments, what I found out, most of libraries are absolutely useless. So they are used, to have a pretty two-string methods which never get called, or equals on hash code for entities which never get called, and stuff which no one needs, but is for cargo cult reasons written over and over again.
Yeah, at the customer, we had this discussion about whether you use shared libraries between teams, or whether a team should write their own code and maintain their own code. So to be faster. So it's a little bit of a different angle on dependencies, but I think it's a very interesting one. So when does a shared library make sense? So that one team maintains but shares it to, 10 other teams, and one where every team must do basically the same and write their own code. I think that's also an interesting aspect.
But it's also simpler to resolve. What I'm talking about is like, nice to have libraries, like for instance Guava, Commons, and all the stuff, or even Lombok, and the other libraries is more like domain specific libraries, and there's complete different discussion. I would see like the domain specific library. Sometimes you cannot even replicate them. It's let's say one team created let's say a payment service abstraction. It would be completely wrong to re-implement the connector over and over again. You will have to reuse that, right? Or let's say signing or encryption combination of encryption algorithm. It would be completely wrong by all the teams re-implement it over and over again. But what we do it in my projects, microservices, we put these libraries as a part of the platform. So we say, okay, the Java EE is just infrastructure, but now we extend the infrastructure with business infrastructure by adding, the business libraries to the Docker layer, which comes as an infrastructure, and the war is still empty, and all the teams get, this image for free. But if the image changes on the next build, it will change for everyone. So it's like part of the platform.
That's an interesting point. Shifting it or pushing it to the platform.
Yes.
Yeah, that's an interesting take. Yeah, thanks. I will take that home with me.
No, it's really interesting that we we immediately understand us. We never met before, actually, right?
No,
This is interesting. So it's like shared mindset, and I come from completely different background. Just spend a lot of time in projects, and the result is very similar. So I think so. I do some monthly question and answer show. And I get lots of questions regarding, shared code and whatever. So it's like 60 episodes already, I think, or 63, so for 5 years. And if the watchers or listeners from their show would read your book, they would think, it's like cooperation between us, because you found, a nice names for the concepts I teach, which I do, and I get lots of trouble with that, like removing everything and just focus on lean code. Or with lean code, what's interesting, if someone read your book, right, and say, the question is, what is the alternative? The alternative is writing, complex code who no one understands, right? This is always an interesting teaching experience or thought experiment. What is the opposite of your book?
Yeah, that's interesting. The opposite is basically not applying it or making code that works for the machine, but it's not suitable for the human. So
probably.
Maybe you could say human-centered programming. I don't know.
Human-centric code. Human-centric code. This is probably, the H in Linux, like ls minus H, like human readable.
Yeah.
And for me, it is the most important thing. And I think the difference is, we try to optimize for humans, and lots of projects try to optimize for machines, because they assume that if they perform some micro optimization in Java, there will be a huge payoff. what usually happens. The Java hotspot is smarter than we, and nothing happens, but no one will understand what you did.
Yeah, but I think most of the, I would say, bad code isn't intentionally written that way. So it's more, it happens because we think we solve it, we add new abstractions and making it more generalizable. What more general, and we always lose something when we add an abstraction, when we make it more general.
Yeah.
And that's what I see in industry nowadays. So we always have to struggle and try to be more specific, try to be more example oriented, and that's where everything becomes graspable for the human brain.
What's interesting, I just found a blog post by myself from 2009. And the title is Abstract If Impl Default Bean Convention Just for Lazy Developers. And I say I prohibited back then. You should never use abstract and just naming convention like abstracts, impl, and so forth. And the comments are interesting. But you wrote the same in your book, which is don't use meaningless names. And you provided examples like abstract manager and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, it's a sign. It's a very strong signal to say that something is not right here.
Yeah, and this is in 80% of all projects is never right. But what I see, big consulting companies have their own templates, and they'll do something like, there's a business concept. Let's say invoice. So they get invoice entity, invoice DTO, invoice mapper, invoice service, invoice resource, and everything, and then not because the architect assumes developers shouldn't think. So then everything is organized like all exceptions are in exceptions package or enums in enums package. Then we have a common package for classes which could be shared. So it's like bureaucratic design. So it's the absolute opposite of what we learn at the university or you teach in your book. And what surprised me, you even wrote about the convention, don't use abstract, which is, unique. So this best practice is hard to find, and I'm absolutely with you. So I'm really happy about your book about that because there is another person who writes about that.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, and what you said. The developers don't do it by how to say intentionally, but in Java, I think what happens often, developers assume their code is highly appreciated by other developers, so they overestimate the reuse, and they try to build modules with interfaces and APIs in the hope that someone will reuse that, which never happens. And this leads to a lots of complexity. So this is like, how to call it, unlikely reuse. So this should be a pattern in your book, Don't write for reuse because likely it will never happen. And reuse comes with a costs. And and I don't know, you have also some, developer experience. If you will review your old code, how often, an interface was reused. I guess mostly by you, but not by the others 9 developers usually. Except you force them to do this, and you could do this in research projects. In the industry, it usually doesn't work because developers are not even in one team from different consulting companies usually in outsourcing. And we are developers, right? How often we scan Maven repository to find something reusable before we write a single line of our code. So it is unlikely, right?
Yeah, that's right. But from my experience, I am very reluctant to reuse code nowadays. I try to use a lot of the Java API or the APIs that the platform provides. Let's define it like that.
Yeah.
But I try to prevent reuse because I've seen so many bad cases where reuse was the motivator to create bad abstractions, really bad abstractions, and when they are introduced, it's really expensive to cut them out again. And I think there were always premature optimizations with the wrong argument. And they always argued with "do not repeat yourself." And I think "do not repeat yourself" it's really tough to master, really tough to understand fully.
I think the patent should be renamed to "do repeat yourself, then refactor." So I think it is better, to have 3 copies of your code, but know where they are, and work with them until you get, more knowledge, what you're actually doing in the project. And then you will probably find better abstractions after a few iterations and then refactor the code. My experience is you will never hit the right abstraction at the first iteration.
Yeah, sure. I concur. Yeah.
Perfect. Regarding Javadoc, this was also a pleasure to read because I see a lots of stupid Javadocs you won't believe. Like my favorite is like, this is a default constructor. I see this, like, you are absolutely stupid. I mean, what you would like, I mean, what's that, right? It has to be a default constructor because there's no parameters, and right? And a workshop developer wrote me a mail and has a great advice. Is also my blog from was it 2013? So I think even before your book. So that's really interesting. It's like and there were 3. He wrote something like the what is in the name, the how in the code, and the why in the comment.
Mm-hmm.
And this is great. So if you think about this, what in the name? So the name of the method or class should be readable. How in the code? So how it happens and why it happens, and is in the comment. So why I did it with some usage examples, and you wrote something similar, and you even provided a template, which are also useful templates, Javadoc templates, and unit test templates.
Mm-hmm. I think the constructor a special case, because a constructor doesn't have a name. That's different to a method. A constructor it's a constructor. That's basically there's no information about that. We can't name it. I think that's a shortcoming in the language, because we can't differentiate between how to construct an object. We can't name it. For that, we would have to introduce methods somehow.
Nee, but just write in the Javadoc of a constructor, this is a parameterless constructor is useless.
Yeah, that's
Yeah, and this is what I usually see. Or in getter, this is a getter get name returns this name as string, and they are doing this because they get SonarQube Javadoc coverage higher than whatever, and the same is true for unit tests. So you should, if you write the next iteration of your book, please add a rule like don't write, pointless unit tests. My favorite is unit tests for constructors, and recently I saw unit tests for exceptions, which just created the exceptions, and this basically was. And unit tests, this is my absolute favorite for enums. Whether an enum enumerates properly, and you know why I'm doing this? To increase the code coverage.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So and this is you need just 5 more rules to have a perfect book. But right now it was really a pleasure.
Okay, that's great.
Simon, thank you. Where people can find you, how they should buy your book. So the question is, how you get the most out of your book. So should they buy it directly by you, Prac Programmers, Amazon? So what is the preferred way to buy your book?
The preferred way is directly at Pragmatic, so at pragprog.com, especially for the ebook, because that's DRM free and you get all the versions, and you can PDF, EPUB, Mobi, so for every reader. So that's basically the best way. From Germany, the cheapest way is Amazon, because if you would buy it from PragProg, you would have very high shipping costs. But, well, you pay Amazon, and if you want to help us and your company pays, we would appreciate paying or buying it at Pragmatic directly.
Okay, then buy at Pragmatic. I also have a Pragmatic account. I buy my books also directly by Pragmatic. And the reason is because they give me Kindle and the EPUB files where I can directly integrate to my smartphone, my tablet. And this is one of the reasons. So there's actually a nice company.
Yeah, you can find me. There was, I think, the other question just on Twitter. It's easiest at Simon Harrer, or in German Simon Harrer.
With double R, right?
Triple R, actually. So
yeah, first two R's, and then the last one. Okay. Cool. So Twitter and Pragmatic Programmer. So thank you a lot, and and enjoy your work and keep your code base lean. So remarkable work.
You too. Nice talking to you.
Thank you.